All right, so we're back at Clear Branch Baptist Church for another Wednesday night Bible study. Hope and pray that this finds everyone well. I hope you had a chance to enjoy the beautiful afternoon that God has provided for us, and that no sickness has come to your home. Very thankful for another opportunity to be sharing God's Word with you tonight, and look forward to the blessings He has for us in. I had a thought this week as I was reading through the Scripture. Of course, this being Holy Week, I was been studying on Christ and all that He went through from the Passover and the triumphal entrance into Jerusalem, into the Passover and on to the crucifixion. And as I was been studying about it, I looked a little bit about what happened in the Garden of Gethsemane. You know, friends are hard to come by. Jesus had Peter, James, and John with Him. And of course, we know the story how that Jesus was sorrowful to the point that He went to pray in the garden, and it said that He prayed as His sweat became as great drops of blood. The agony that He was about to go through had really set in on Him. Who did He take with Him? His three closest earthly friends. And what did they do? They let Him down. Oftentimes, I wonder sometimes if we realize how important being a good friend and having a good friend is. The Bible tells us that iron sharpeneth iron. In the 27th chapter of Proverbs, 17th verse, it says, iron sharpeneth iron, so a man sharpeneth the countenance of his friend. I've often thought about this. I've got an accountability partner, a good friend of mine. I'll just use his first name. His name's Kevin. And oftentimes we have lunch. Boy, would it not be nice to have lunch somewhere right now? But oftentimes we have lunch. And during our times of lunch, we end up preaching to each other sometimes. One of the things I found is that when iron sharpens iron, it takes a hard surface to sharpen something like an axe. You take an axe, for instance, hard to sharpen, okay? We use it to cut through wood. We use it to cut through all kinds of brush. But when it comes time to sharpen it, what do you sharpen it with? Not peanut butter, not jelly. You have to use something harder than the axe. You know what that is? It's a file. The file is so hard that it takes off bits and pieces of the edge of the axe until it gets sharp again. I would say it's probably not a pleasant, if the axe could talk, it's not a pleasant experience for the axe because it's taking away the rough edges and it's taking away the things that need, the burrs that don't need to be there. It's sharpening it. Oftentimes when Kevin and I sit at lunch, we have conversations, and sometimes it's not easy to be told where you're lacking or where you need to improve. I wonder if there's anybody out there that's watching this tonight that has a hard time being told they might need to improve somewhere. Nobody likes to be told that, right? I mean, honestly, we get mad at God sometimes when He tells us, don't say you don't, because I've seen the looks that you give me back from the pews sometimes. I know what you're thinking, okay? So I'm sure there's people out there tonight saying, you know what, I don't like to be told I'm wrong. Well, if you like to admit that you're wrong, I'll go ahead and tell you. You might want to pause this if you're watching it on video. Run to the kitchen, grab you a big glass of vinegar, come back, hit the play button, and take you a swig, because it's about what it's like. It's hard to admit we're wrong sometimes, is it not? That's where good accountability partners come in. Having someone that you can go to in a time of trouble, or just when you need to talk. Iron sharpeneth iron. In the 19th verse of that same chapter, it says, as in water face answers to face, so the heart of man to man. When we look across the table at our friends or our accountability partners, sometimes we see the best and worst in ourselves, so they can see the best and worst in us. I tell you, it's good to have a good accountability partner. I want to give a shout out to my buddy Kevin, if he's out there watching. I hope you are, and I pray that all is well with you. It's important that we lift each other up. It says in Thessalonians, it says, wherefore comfort yourselves together and edify one another, even as also you do. You'll find that in 1 Thessalonians, the 5th chapter, the 11th verse. Lifting each other up. Man, does it not feel good to lift up a friend? Oftentimes when I look at my friend and we have lunch together, I find myself praying. I pray, Lord, help me have the words of a good friend, but more importantly, help me listen like a good friend. Tonight, would you like to listen like a good friend, or would you like to talk like a good friend? Iron sharpens iron. Sometimes it's not a pleasant thing. You file and you get shavings. It knocks something off. Maybe sometimes we don't like it when that happens. I found that to be true in most things. Can I get on my soapbox for just a little bit? I believe in this country we've raised a bunch of crybabies and whiners. A bunch of wimps, if you will. We get our feelings hurt when somebody tells us we're wrong. We don't like it. We take our ball, we go to the house. We say, I'm not playing with you anymore. You know what? The Bible tells me that we are to humble ourselves. We mentioned it a couple times now. The Bible tells us to humble ourselves before God. If we humble ourselves and seek his face and pray, then he will hear our prayers and he will heal our land. It's not easy to admit that you're wrong, okay? I get it. I don't like to admit that I'm wrong. My wife can probably count on two hands after 29 years of marriage how many times I've said I'm sorry. It hurts. I get it. But you know what? It's a needful thing. We go back to the story of Jesus in the garden. Peter had just told Jesus, he said, I will be with you forever. He said, I'll fight with you. I'll stay with you. I will never leave you. And what does he do? As soon as Jesus is betrayed, it says that he denies him 3 times before the cock crowed. I like the story of the book of Luke where it says that Jesus looked at him. Can you imagine that look? Can you imagine what it must have felt like for Peter? How that Jesus turned his face and he looked at his friend who had just denied him. It's important that we be a good friend. It's important that we stand by our friends in their time of need. The Bible also goes on to tell the story, though, in the book of John, how that at the end of the book of John, how that Jesus redeems Peter's denial. He tells him, he said, do you love me, Peter? He said, of course I do. He said, well, then feed my sheep. He said, do you love me, Peter? Yes, I do. Feed my lambs. He gives Peter the opportunity to redeem his failures. I'm so glad that God does not hold our failures against us as a friend. The old song that we sing so often from the church hymnal, what a friend we have in Jesus. If ever there was a truer song, I don't know it. I'm glad to know that we have a friend in Jesus. God has blessed me in this life with some really good friends. I've already mentioned one of them. One of the things that he and I talk about from time to time is that we can talk to each other. Sometimes we talk to each other like preachers. Sometimes we talk to each other like brothers. Sometimes we talk to each other like frenemies. But at the end of the day, we know it's all out of love, and we know it's for each other's good. And the great thing about it is we never leave mad, and we always leave with a hug. It's not easy to admit you're wrong sometimes, but the more you do it, the easier it gets. Jesus wants to be your friend tonight. He wants to be that friend like none other. He is your friend like none other. He gave his life for you. He gave himself on Calvary for you. I hope and pray that as this week has went along that you have taken the opportunity to study over the Easter passage. I hope and pray that you took the opportunity to read a little bit about what's going on in this week in Jesus' life before the crucifixion. Friday is Good Friday, the day when it signifies the day that he was hung on the cross. I hope and pray that as each person has their time on Friday, that whether you're at home from work or maybe you're on the job still or wherever that it finds you at, I hope that you take just a few moments and you think about what Jesus done for you. What a friend we have in Jesus. Man, what a true song. I hope and pray that as we go through this rest of this weekend that you just realize how much that Jesus did for you and how his love for you is commended to you. It's awesome to have a friend like that. I have friends that I feel like I could call in the middle of the night and I were to tell them, hey, I need your car keys, I need all the money in your pocket. I've got friends that I do believe would give me everything they have to make my life easier. You know what? Jesus gave his all. He gave his all on a cross at Calvary. He gave his all when he fought death and hell. And he gave his all when he came out of the tomb. I am so glad that Jesus is that kind of friend, that even in the middle of our darkest nights, we can call on him and he'll be there. So, iron sharpens iron tonight. Maybe there's a few rough edges in your life that Jesus is trying to knock off. Maybe there's a few things that maybe aren't pleasing to you. Maybe there's a few things that you look at and you say, you know what, I need to improve on these. Well, how about this? How about before the sun goes down tonight that you find yourself on your knees somewhere, or maybe sitting on your couch, or you just take a few moments of time to reflect and say, Lord, if I need to improve, if you need to knock a few of the rough edges off, if you need to change me a little bit, I'm good with that because you are my best friend and I understand what you're saying. Now, I hope everybody gets a chance to come out and be with us on Sunday. We're going to do a preaching from the porch if everything goes well. I know it's supposed to rain, but hopefully everything will work out and you'll be able just to sit in your vehicles with the windows up, practicing our social distancing, doing all the things that we're supposed to do right. And, oh, by the way, the church will remain locked, so you might want to go to the bathroom before you come, okay? But we're planning on being here and preaching from the porch and having a good time. It'll be just nice to wave at everybody through your windows. I hope you have a chance to do that. It'll be at 10 o'clock this Sunday morning. If not, I understand you can't get out. I understand you may not want to chance it. Then tune back into Facebook Live. Catch us on YouTube. It'll be there later. I hope and pray that this finds everyone well. So as we go through the rest of this week, I just want you to take the opportunity to just look at what this week really means. You see this cross behind me? That cross, it may not be the one he hung on, but it's the one that what it signifies is what means the most to me. That there was a cross on Calvary that my Jesus bled and died on. That he did do the ultimate fighting championship. He beat death and hell. He kicked it right in the teeth. And he came out alive and victorious out of that grave. I am so thankful that he's my best friend. Tonight, I hope this finds you well. Look forward to being back with you on Sunday morning at 10 o'clock, whether through the car window or here on Facebook Live. And until then, our prayers are with you, and I hope and pray that this does find you well. But until then, Pastor Randy, out.